What's new, crew? We're outside again today. It feels good to be getting projects done outside, but we have some crazy weather coming in. It's supposed to rain and hail basically over the next 4 days. And I have this bed full of potatoes and also shallots and things. It is about that time I'm gonna pull them up. I had onions and stuff. I already pulled some of those. They basically just kind of died in the heat that we've been having. So I pulled up what was still good. I want to go through this bed today, kind of get this rocked out and all of the shallots and potatoes laid out in the shop to start the curing process. I basically have to do this now because we have some electricians who are coming to put power in the shop over the next couple of weeks. They have to run all the wires and things, and we basically have to clear out a lot of the shop, and I just don't think we're gonna have room in there for all of the potatoes and onions and things, and I would really like to cure them out basically for about 2 or 3 weeks. So we've got our bucket down here. We're gonna rock it out. You're probably gonna hear the tractor in the background. Joe's mulching trees with wood chips and things that we have, so we're all just kind of rocking out outside projects today before the big storm. I've got a couple hours today, so this is my priority. I'm gonna start by pulling shallots, and then I'll go get a potato fork and start digging out potatoes. So let's see what we got this year for shallots and potatoes. Here's where we're at for starters here, just kind of like the first row-ish that I had. I have 3 different varieties of onions in here, 2 different white onion varieties, or a yellow onion, a white onion, and then some shallots. They're not quite as big as they were last year, but for not weeding the bed and not really watering the bed, really just planting, fertilizing, and forgetting, I'm not super mad with any of these. So thinking my plans for these onions might switch, just because a lot of them are very tiny. Not all of them are this super tiny, but they just didn't do very well for me this year. And I'm thinking maybe instead of curing them, because they're all somewhat small, I might just actually peel them, rinse them, and put them in the freezer as like little pearl onions, or I might even just dice them and just have them prepped for like dump in the crock pot throughout the winter for stews and soups and things. Or I probably still won't cure them. I might just bring them inside and put them in the basement where it's cool and dark, and just use them over the next couple of months. I've been using these onions fresh all winter anyways, so I'm not like super disappointed in the yield of these, because like I said, it was not a very like hands-on garden year for us, as you can tell by the weeds in these beds. We just really took a laid-back approach to things this year, and I don't regret it at all. Not at all. So for the work I put in, sometimes this is just the result you get back. But it was also a very hot year. There were a lot of factors and things, and like I said, we didn't have irrigation set up like we should have. We didn't have the sprinklers on through the big drought that we had, and that probably is a huge factor in these onions. Plus they were really shaded by all the weeds and things, so kind of just a combination of the realities of this garden year for us. This is kind of the result, so can't be super mad at it. We will still use it, be really grateful, but it can be hard coming off of a year last year where I literally just now ran out of all of the onions and shallots that we grew and preserved last year by curing and things. So sometimes it's 2 steps forwards and 1 step back, and that's just the reality of it sometimes, and this year that's just my reality. So I'm gonna go grab the potato fork. I see it leaning up against the chicken coop, which is a perfect place for it, obviously. So I'm gonna go get that and start digging up these potatoes, because I think I pulled most of my onions. I'm sure I'll still find a couple stragglers in there and all these weeds, but we will see what the potato harvest is looking like. But off of these potatoes, I'm going to assume the potatoes probably aren't gonna be a fantastic yield either, but who knows? You never really know until you start digging in the ground. So first plant, we got a couple little potatoes here. I grew a yellow variety this year. Oh, you're gonna taste test it? Tastes like dirt, huh? But Cleo went to the chicken coop and found a couple eggs too. So we're getting a nice basket today. So when I'm in here, I'm just pulling some of the plants here. Sometimes I get a good pull, and sometimes not so much. Looks like we got 1 little potato there. Hopefully I get some good big ones in here.
I'm using this chicken crescent roll recipe kind of as inspiration for dinner tonight, but I figured I would show you guys the actual recipe if you wanted to follow this one specifically. But alls I ended up doing was putting some chicken thighs into my Instant Pot with a little bit of water and seasonings that my family likes. I tend to keep it pretty basic. And then I went ahead and moved my chicken from the Instant Pot once it was cooked into my KitchenAid to shred it, throwing in a complete 8-ounce block of cream cheese, giving it a little bit of a taste test, and then uh, adding more seasonings if I needed to. I also threw in a handful of cheddar cheese because that's once again what our family likes. And I'm using pre-made crescent roll dough, and we are going to take that cheese and chicken filling and basically stuff it into these little crescent rolls and then bake it to the crescent roll instructions in the oven. These were fantastic. My family absolutely loved them. I cooked green beans on the side. The original recipe called to put broccoli inside them, but I have a couple family members who aren't the biggest fan of broccoli, so I opted to leave that out. But personally, I think broccoli stuffed in these would be really good too. And I think these would be really fun to prep in like a bulk form and put in the freezer with different fillings. So delicious. This was a great meal and it will be added to our rotation. There are some things in the garden that have just been crazy this year. Two of those things being pickles and green beans, which is awesome because those are things that we can really never have enough of. So I did another small batch of dilly beans. These are a family favorite. And because I was mixing up a pickling brine, I decided to take whatever kind of cucumbers I had and go ahead and do another batch of pickles. And I went ahead and got both my canners up and we did another load of these, which is fantastic. Sometimes canning isn't always canning like 50 jars at a time. Sometimes it is just doing, 5 jars of this and 6 jars of this or 2 jars of this, and it's really great. Another thing that's been crazy this year because of how much zucchini we planted is the zucchini. So, coming up, I'm going to have a video on some of my favorite zucchini recipes and how we use them. So, that is kind of what the homestead has been looking like over the last couple of days, really trying to check little things off the list. I did not get all of my potatoes harvested because baby and just life. So I'm gonna go back out there again after this next batch of rain passes and kind of finish harvesting those up. But other than that, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys have a fantastic start to your week.